Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing some magnetization for the knob on Smasha Squig. Even though this kit has the same loadout no matter what, my buddy thought it'd be cool to be able to swap his gun and big choppa around, and then being able to put whatever weapon he wasn't using at the time on the saddle of the Smasha Squig. So get the model built. As you can see, I've got the whole model built except for the arm we're going to magnetize on. And then, of course, with always check the fitment so you know how it's supposed to fit and how it's supposed to look. I got both the big choppa and the big shooter. We're going to magnetize both of them. So I thought I had a pretty clever idea. I was going to try and use two 2mm magnets to magnetize the arm on and hopefully stop it from doing any rotating or anything. But it was just a little too tricky and I couldn't quite get it to sit right without being too much of a gap on either side. So we're going to go back to the tried and true method and you just use one large magnet. But I figured this would be a good time to kind of share with you or show you one technique to get magnets out in case you messed up the polarity or did what I did and experimented with something and it didn't quite turn out. So as you can see in this picture here, I already got the magnets out of the arm, and then I will show you in the torso how to remove them from there. The easiest way to get a stuck magnet out, I find, is to just drill a tiny hole beside the magnet. Again, starting with the hobby knife for the pilot hole, and then I'm going up to a 2mm again. I'm going to drill right between the two magnets. And then once you can kind of get under, I use my hobby knife to try and pry the magnet out, twisting back and forth. As you can see, this one comes out fairly easy. Now, be very careful when you're doing this. Don't look too close at the object. I recommend wearing safety glasses and being very careful. To protect your eyes, you only get one set, and you can't really fix them. But the other one was a little more tricky. I had to cut along the side of it a little more until I could really get that razor blade under there and pry it out. I'm putting my thumb over it, so as I'm prying, that way if something were to break off or flick off into my eye, it wouldn't flick off or break off into my eye. Again, be very careful. I highly recommend wearing safety glasses when you do this. So now that we got the magnets out, we just want to come in with the hobby knife and clean it up. We're going to run the 2mm or 5/64 drill bit through there again. Make sure it goes all the way through, up and down, and then we're going to step it up to a 3mm 1/8 drill bit. Just make sure it goes all the way in. We're going to end up using a 5x1mm magnet for this connection here. So we make sure the 3mm goes in there, no problem. Is able to spin freely before we step it up to the 5mm drill bit, which is actually a 13/64 drill bit. And as you can see, it kind of wants to bind up there. So sometimes you need to do almost like a quarter turn and then back a quarter turn and then another quarter turn and then back a quarter turn. And then when it really starts to hang up, you can go in with your hobby knife and kind of clean up all the thin-walled plastic that you basically created in this process. And then go back to the drill bit again and do another, quarter turn, back, quarter turn, and just keep doing that until you can move the drill bit freely inside the hole into the void of the torso. Once you are happy with that, you see me giving one last little cleanup with the hobby knife, and then I do one more little pass with the drill bit. Once you're happy with that, make sure you check the fitment of the arm. Make sure it still is sitting flush and there's no burrs or anything that's going to hold it up and make it sit out too far. So I was happy with how that looked on both the back and the front side. Way better than it was with the dual magnets. And then, of course, grab your magnets and make sure they freely move into the the torso hole as well. The torso hole all drilled out. Now we're just going to pack the torso with milliput. So kind of roll it out into a cylindrical type shape and just stuff it in the hole. And use something metal. I have a little toothpick. Dip it in water so the milliput doesn't stick to it. And then just force it in the chest cavity. Stack 2 magnets you're planning on using. For me, in this case, 5 by 1 millimeter. And just place it on top of the milliput we already built up inside the chest cavity. And this will account for proper clearance. Now we're going to use the arm itself to kind of push the magnets down to the proper depth. Sorry, I did a terrible job of filming this. But yeah, you just want to look on both sides. Make sure the arm is sitting how it's intended to sit and press it down for a few seconds. And then I'm just using a toothpick there to clean any milliput off the top of the magnet, and then use a stack of magnets to pull both the magnets out. Once that dries, we'll glue them in place. Now, before actually gluing anything in place, make sure you check your fitment. In my case, I had to drill out some of the milliput to make it fit. But when you do the test, just make sure you have 2 magnets in the socket, and then try and fit the arm on. If it doesn't quite fit flush like it should, then just go back to drilling a little more, and then check, drill some more, check, until you get the fitment you want. On the arm side of the connection, I'm just gonna scrape it down a bit and try and get the flattest spot I can for the magnet and the milliput. Now we can glue the magnet into the chest cavity. It just takes a little bit of glue, not a whole lot. So glue that in, use something wooden to press it down. After that dries, we're going to put the second magnet on top of it. We're going to put a little putty on the arm socket, and we're going to press it on top of the 2 magnets to again try and get a nice flat spot to glue the second magnet onto. We're going to do the same thing with the other arm. Basically going to pack it full of milliput and kind of leave a little peak of milliput at the end. And do the exact same thing. We're just going to take it and we're going to make sure there's 2 magnets in the socket. Maybe coat it with a little bit of water and press it into the chest. And hopefully get a nice flat spot like we did here. I had to trim some of the milliput on one of my arms down, so just check your fitment before you add any glue. So we're going to use a tiny amount of super glue. We're going to make sure the magnet is in that arm. And then we're going to put just a tiny little drop in the center of the magnet, press the arm against it, and leave it there for like at least 30 seconds to just let the super glue kind of dry a bit. And then you should be able to pull it apart and get the magnet on the arm side there. After you do the first arm, just wipe the socket on the torso out again with paper towel, just to make sure there's no extra super glue and you don't glue the arm into the socket. So make sure you put another magnet in there now, and then again a very small amount of super glue, as you can see there, just tiny little amount. And then get the arm orientated properly and press it in there, hold it for at least 15 seconds, and then I would leave it sit for at least a minute, depending on super glue, before you pull it out. And there you go, both arms magnetized. Now to magnetize the saddle weapons, so of course check how they're supposed to fit before you go drilling any holes or gluing anything. So with both weapons, check how they're supposed to fit. And then start your pilot hole again with the hobby knife. Just kind of going in these little half moon shapes to just get a good starting point for the drill. And then right after, we're going to jump up to the 2 mil drill bit. And that's the final size we're gonna drill. We're just gonna use a 2 mm magnet. And then with the stack of magnets, check your depth. Once you've got your depth correct, put some super glue in the hole. Get your magnet ready on your hobby knife. Just put it upside down, put your fingers over it, and pull it away. And then if it's not quite sitting flat, you can grab a piece of wood and kind of smooth it out and leave it to dry. So as always, check the fitment of the weapons on the saddle there, so you don't have any surprises once you go to glue it or drill some holes. And then in such a tight, low clearance area, I like to put a little black dot more as a guide. So, in this case, I wanted to drill more to the one edge of the black dot to try and keep it as centered as possible. We're going to be using a 2x1 mm magnet. So start your pilot hole with your hobby knife and then jump up to the 2 mm drill bit or 5/64, and just continue to drill that to depth, checking with your stack of magnets, using your hobby knife to clean up the hole every once in a while. And then after drilling the hole, check the fitment again, make sure there's not any weird burrs or anything that'll be holding up the way the piece is supposed to sit. Maybe give it a last check with the magnets for proper depth. And then we can proceed to glue in the magnet, of course, checking for polarity. Put a little mark on that magnet just so you don't mess up the polarity. And then add your glue, put the magnet on the hobby knife, and put the magnet in the piece. And then use a toothpick or some other wooden or plastic, non-ferrous, non-magnetic tool to kind of push the magnet in place and make it flat. And then we're just going to go through and repeat the same thing on the gun, trying to keep it centered as possible. There's not a lot of room here. That's why we're going with such small magnets. But just get your pilot hole started, and then you can go right up to the 5/64 drill bit. Drill it to depth, again checking with your magnets to see if it's deep enough yet. And then when you're ready, you can glue it into place. And this is the last piece for this model, so we're just going to do the same thing. Clean it up with the hobby knife. Check it for depth one last time. Put the super glue on there. Check the magnet polarity. And glue in the magnet. And then wait for them both to dry. And then you can reap the rewards of your hard-earned labor. Once you've set those pieces aside to dry, then we can come and test it all out. So we can equip them with the big chopper, put the big shooter on the saddlebag, and then switch it around. Put the big chopper on a saddlebag and put the big shooter in his hand. But that is it. Thank you everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. If you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments down below. Again, thank you so much. Hope this inspires you to magnetize some models of your own.